All right, good evening. Welcome to our regular board meeting, April 21st, 2020. Everybody could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Yetsey.
Here.
Mrs. McCarthy.
Here.
Mrs. Saxon.
Here.
Mrs. Chimero.
Here.
And Mr. Baca.
Here. Finalization of the agenda. Is there anything to add or delete?
The agenda is final as presented.
Thank you. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the written summary of the special and regular minutes for the meetings on March 3rd, 2020 and March 17th, 2020.
Moved. Second.
Moved by Ms. McCarthy, second by Ms. Saxon. Roll call, please.
Mrs. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mrs. Saxon.
Yes.
Mrs. Yetsey.
Yes.
Mrs. Chimero.
Yes.
Mr. Baca.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Fantastic. We have 4 quick updates for the board tonight. The first is a remote learning update that Mr. Pritt is going to walk us through, and this is based on our survey data that was released last week. Mr. Pritt?
Thanks. Mr. Ramos is going to enable sharing here for a second, and I want to share with you actually a brief presentation. I'll make sure that all of you have a copy of this shared with you. Last Friday, in our weekly update, Roxanne had shared out a survey that we had been working on to get kind of feedback from the community as to where we are with online learning. And the couple of questions that we really wanted to focus on was, one, communication from the district level and from the building level. And then 2, the rollout of remote learning right now. Where are we as a community? What's the parent feel about how that rollout has gone? We have been anticipating this entire time that we might be in a situation that we find ourselves in, which is, continuing this through the end of the school year. And before we do another 4 or 5 or 6 weeks of this, we really want to get that community feedback and find out what's working, what's not working, what's in our control to change as we move forward. So we've gotten responses between Friday when that went out and today at noon from 403 individual people. From that represents about 685 students represented, since some of these parents have more than one student in a building. Pretty good return, actually. We're running about 15% response rate, which is probably higher than we typically have when we survey parents in general. So the 2 questions, at least that we'll focus on initially, is, how would you rate the quality of communication you're receiving from the district administrative team? So if you've been in the community, you've probably gotten Roxanne's phone calls. You should be receiving a weekly email on Fridays that kind of lays out where things are, what things are happening, how they're being addressed. This was rated on a scale of 1 to 4, 1 being a 4, 4 being excellent. And for the quality of communication that's coming out from the district, the average score is at 3.67. So I think it's showing that we're doing a really good job of putting quality information out there. The second question that went along with that was, do you feel the amount of communication is appropriate? This was on a sliding scale of 1 to 5, 1 being too little, 5 being too much. And here we've got a 3.35, and that's about where we want to be. So you're looking at it thinking, out of 5, ooh, that's not where we want to be. But when you look at the score and realize that 5 is too much communication, the right amount of communication on a sliding scale like this is exactly a 3. So in this particular case, we're sitting at a 3.35. So based on what the community feel is right now, we may even be getting a little too much information, but it's kind of in that sweet spot, right around that 3, which is where we would hope with our communication piece. The big question really for us revolved around the rollout of remote learning and what's that look like for families. So the question was phrased, remote learning has been effectively implemented at, and then it listed out each of the buildings. So that fill in the blank is where people can fill in their specific building they were talking about. 4 choices here, everything from they strongly agree with that statement, to agree with that statement, to disagree with the statement, to strongly disagree with the statement. So those are the four options. Out of the 685 responses we have 287 that responded that they agree with the statement that remote learning district-wide has been effectively implemented. 305 strongly agree that remote learning has been effectively implemented across the district. And this is where I have to give, props to our teachers that are doing this on an everyday basis. We have been working with technology for a number of years. I don't think any of us ever thought that we were going to have to do this, in 5 days, which is realistically what we had put in place for us was, on Thursday we get a notice that schools are closing on Monday. So to pull all of that together to get teachers in a great spot, we really have to take our hats off to them. Based on the responses that we're seeing here, their willingness to do things. The teachers filled out their own surveys, and generally there are positive experiences there as well that we're working through. So big hats off goes to them, big hats off goes to our administrators who are kind of overseeing this at a building level. Because those numbers, when you add them together and divide, 86.4% of our families, our respondents feel like remote learning has been effectively implemented. They agree with that, or they strongly agree with that. So that's a really good number for us to see. When we look into the data a little bit deeper, we have this broken down by building. Percentage of people that agree or strongly agree range anywhere from 84.6 to 90.5. So everybody is within about 2% of where we are as a district. Building level communication is also positive. They're getting quality information, is what the results are telling us, and they're getting about the right amount of information as well. When you look at the building by building breakdown, they're even a little bit closer to that mid number of 3. And generally feedback has been positive across the board. I've pulled some examples of that. I think my daughter's teachers are doing the absolute best to help her. I'm very pleased with all of them. They're wonderful teachers. I'm grateful to have them. I feel the staff is doing an excellent job. My children have impressed me with their skills, knowledge, and working on their Chromebooks. I think the teachers are going above and beyond with the organization for all 3 children. And this one I think is probably my favorite. Thanks for the smooth transition. I'm sure their snags were plenty. We feel like things are progressing amazingly well, all things considered. Thanks for what is being done to support our students' community. Stay safe, and thank you for all the hard work. So if I pull out the survey, there are literally hundreds of pieces of feedback that kind of echo what we've captured here. Even with that said, we're not happy with 86%. We're going to keep working on that. A couple of things that might be overarching. There are some concern about student workload, and that seems to vary based on family situations at home. So we knew going into this, and kind of when we put together our guidelines, we knew that a lot of students would not have the support they have, obviously, at school. So that's something for the next 5 or 6 weeks we definitely want to look at and see, are these appropriate? What is the data saying there? We have some cases to where parents are saying their kids are spending more time working on their work than they get at school. And if that's the case, that's where we need to reach out to parents and say, that shouldn't be happening. Set a timer. We kind of outlined a half-hour block for our elementaries, or 45-minute block. You hit that number, let's cut them off for now. And that's where the communication piece back and forth is important. We're working on that communication now with our parents, because we do want to follow up with what the survey results are. We know that we can communicate even better. In some of that, it's communication around specific lessons or what's being asked. So that's going to be important to get out there. And then the big one, and I think we all feel this, is how do we increase that staff-student and student-to-student interaction? We have students now, in some cases, haven't been out of the house for the last 5 or 6 weeks. So how do we create situations to where they can see each other, to where they can interact with one another, and have some sense of normalcy, heading into the end of the school year, not knowing what the beginning of next school year will bring to us. So that's kind of the quick and dirty of what the survey results are telling us. Again, we're going to work on getting out a communication to parents to show that we've, not only received this, but we're looking at it, we're taking it to heart what we can take to heart, and we'll make adjustments from here moving forward. So, any questions from the board?
Thank you for the presentation, David. I just have a question that you may not have an answer yet, since we just got the word about schools so
Sure.
soon. But how is all this going to impact summer school and our extended school year, all of those programs? Do you have any idea about that yet?
So we've spoken at our last 2 cabinet meetings. Julie and I are meeting, I believe it's tomorrow, to talk a little bit about that. And then we've got a bigger summer school meeting on Friday to talk about that. The two pieces we're going to have strong conversations about is what does that summer school piece look like, and then what does the intervention piece look like in the fall when people come back to school. So I think if you give us probably another week or two, we can give you a better answer on where we are with that right now, but it is certainly something at the front of our radar.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, David.
Absolutely.
Have you figured out if you're making any adjustments to grades or anything? We did get some information about what was happening at the high school with finals being canceled. Are there any adjustments happening with their grade scales or how they're handling late assignments? You know, what our parents should know about assignments?
Yeah, we actually, I have a draft of that email ready to go that I finished off today and shared out with some admins. So our hope is to get that piece either out tomorrow or more than likely Thursday, because we meet it as an entire administrative team on Thursday. So there will be some slight changes to how the end of year grades are calculated. But for now, students will continue to see, a grade in place where they traditionally receive grades. There will be a third trimester or a fourth quarter report card. We know that that's been shared out, and then we'll make some adjustments as we go to make sure that none of our students are negatively being impacted by not having a teacher in the classroom with them at all times. And that's our goal, is to make sure that we're being fair to students that are being forced into situations that honestly they shouldn't be in, that nobody should be in. It's just, the nature of where we are right now. So we've been cognizant about when we're giving guidance with our teachers to make sure they're flexible. One of the things that's going to be in the email, and I know it's been talked about with every single administrator, is, be flexible, be understanding, reach out if you're not hearing from a kid, find out what's going on. A student could be sick at home, they may not have support at home, they may be the person who's overseeing brothers and sisters getting work done. So be flexible, and I think we've got some things as we work through that will help with that process.
Great, thank you so much.
Right.
David, the results speak for themselves. It's absolutely exciting to see those results and the parent feedback, and the fact that this was rolled out in 5 days, the professional development to get our teachers and staff up to speed, the 100% buy-in by teachers and staff, the breakfast and lunch program moving forward, the stadium lights last night, the harvest food drive here in our parking lot. Our staff and admin have been nothing short of amazing through all of this. And we can't begin to thank them enough as a community. And seeing that our parents, quite frankly, feel that way as well is outstanding. So keep up the good work. Both union groups, I see you both out there. Seriously, thank you. And tell your staff and teachers thank you from, the bottom of our hearts. It's been amazing.
Yeah, it's really been a team effort from top to bottom. I can't say enough about being here right now. I know how rollouts have gone in some other places, and that's something to be proud of.
Okay.
Anything?
Okay, the next report is just a very quick update on issue 13. And these are just some numbers I want to share with the board. As of 1:30 p.m. today, 7,678 ballots have been requested. 3,054 have been returned. So that gives us a 39.8% return rate. We are hoping that we see a major increase in that return rate this week. We do know that Monday, the 27th, is the last day to postmark. Those ballots. So just a reminder to those of you out there who do need to return them, please do so prior to Monday, the 27th.
Madam Superintendent, I was on the Board of Elections website today, and it also indicated that the 25th at noon is the last opportunity to request a ballot. However, I strongly feel that's way too late in order to get it back to by postmark by the 27th or hand delivered by the 28th. So just encourage anyone who's watching to, if you're thinking and you haven't done it, do it right now.
Thank you so much, Mrs. McCarthy. Very true. Okay, so we will hopefully receive those results and...
What?
Quick question, did they have any idea when the results are going to be tallied? I had a lot of teachers who were asking that.
Not at this time, Mr. McMillan. We have not had any updates from the Board of Elections in terms of a time frame, but we'll keep you updated.
Excellent.
Okay, Mr. Younger, you want to talk briefly about food distribution?
Yeah, so as I think everyone's aware, Eric Buhner, his Aramark team, and our food service staff, in addition to our support staff led by Kim Ulrich, who's on here in terms of getting volunteers to distribute food, have again, to piggyback off of David's sentiments to our teaching staff, this group has been equally as awesome in making sure that our community has been receiving meals. We're averaging roughly about 300 meals a day. We distribute on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning from 8 to 10. Eric has submitted a submitted a request rather to the ODE to begin the possibility of serving dinner meals as well, now that we know that we're out of school for the rest of the year. So he's waiting to hear back from ODE on that component. And additionally, he is going to be starting to give out what will be hot meals. So they'll be frozen as they get them, but they'll have heating instructions or cooking instructions in them. Those will be given out as part of our meals as well. But again, thanks to our food service folks and Kim and our support staff for coming out and volunteering and making sure that that's run as smooth as it has for the duration that we've been out of school.
Thank you, Mr. Younger. Questions on food?
You know what? I do have a question on food. I was asked today whether or not we were going to continue the meals through summer.
We also something that we are looking into, and again, we need to get some guidance from ODE, but that is something we have requested guidance on sooner rather than later, so we also will keep you posted on that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
How many meals should we be distributing?
If you're talking free and reduced population, Kristen, well, that's roughly 900 students in the district. If that answers your question.
So I'm concerned that we're only servicing about a third of them. Have we talked about or thought about alternate ways to get them their meals, or what are our thoughts on that? We've communicated out many different ways. Yeah, honestly, it hasn't been discussed in terms of delivering the meals. I think through the other avenues, not just with our district, but Frank mentioned the Second Harvest for Hunger and some other means that perhaps they're utilizing those outlets as well. I know that we've tried to make this as readily available in terms of communication and knowing what's going on as possible, and really trying to ramp up the amount of people that can come and get them.
Mr. Junker, if I could interject on behalf of Mr. Junker, we do have, and we put out in our weekly communication, the NRCS Family Support Form, and on there, if people have difficulty with picking up the meals, we do actually have Chelsea Freeman and volunteers delivering to the homes for those folks that have indicated they need that help to get them to them. And I think that's been roughly averaging about 40 to 50 meals a day on the Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays that we do it, that are delivered to homes.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Okay, and final quick update is in regard to technology and how we are servicing our technology devices as well as returning them. Mr. Hieronymus.
Thank you very much. So believe it or not, our devices are still breaking when they're at home. So we are working with the meal distribution to make that work as smoothly as possible. We appreciate the hard work that my team has done with Jason and Jack. They've really worked very hard to make this a nice, smooth transition. We are doing this in front of the Academic Center Monday, Wednesday, and Friday between 8 and 10. It goes right hand in hand with the meals. But just so you're aware that when people come up to that area, they indicate that they have a device that needs to be repaired. We have a small little form that we have just to give us a clue of what could be wrong with it that the parents will help us fill out. and then we give them a loaner to take with them so that they have a device working right away for that. Devices, though, that we pick up, do need to sit for 72 hours before we can even touch them. So we have those devices go through a quick quarantine period. Then our team, of course, is wearing protective gloves as well while they're working on the devices, and then we would then schedule them to be going home. One of the things that we found was that our loaners were working out almost too well, that people did not want to come and pick them up for obvious reasons. So thanks to our transportation department, and appreciate Matt Younker's help with that, they have stepped up and are delivering those devices to the homes so that we can, one, get our loaners back, because with that 72-hour period, we also have to have that sit for our loaners when we get them back as well. So now we need 3 times the amount of loaner devices than we would normally. So the way that works is when our devices are repaired, they're going into a spreadsheet that our IT department then is calling the homes and let them know that the next day, on a Wednesday or a Friday, that they will be delivered to their homes between the windows of 8 and 10. And then they collect the loaner back from them when they get that, so that loaner can now sit in its quarantine situation as well. So that's how that's going. We've done about 100 devices since we have left the square, which is we're about right on par. We did find a lot of our loaner devices needed some repairs, not because people were neglecting them, but because we have not been using the cameras and the microphones as aggressively with the loaner devices in our classrooms. There were several of those that needed to be repaired, and we didn't know. So that was that's been some of those additional ones, part of that cleanup that we weren't expecting. But it's been going, as far as our view is, it's been going very smooth, and we appreciate the hard work that our team has been doing. Any questions involving the devices?
Yes, I have a question. At this point, have we decided whether or not we're going to try to collect all of these before summer?
That's an item that we're looking at and we're discussing, and as soon as we know an answer to that, we'll get that out to everybody as soon as possible. So we're still building the airplane while it's flying, but we're going to be looking at a couple of options with that as we look into our plans for the future.
Thank you.
That concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. All right, here's an opportunity of hearing of the public on agenda items. If there's anybody in attendance this evening via Zoom that has anything that they'd like addressed, now's your opportunity. Okay. We'll move on to the education report. Ms. Mira?
We have 3 items for your consideration under the education report. The first agreement is with the Educational Service Center of Lorain County. This is an annual county service agreement, which includes the following universal services: participation in speech and language supervisory services, audiological services, behavior specialist support services, gifted and talented support supervisory services, and parent mentor services. The agreement also includes specialized district services of a board-certified analyst and a district social worker. The ESC of Lorain County also provides pathways to success and the consortium preschool education program services to North Ridgeville City Schools. The second agreement is to approve NRCS to join a consortium for alternative education services along with 6 other districts. The Ombudsman program helps students make academic progress by offering differentiated instruction with standards-based curriculum and a technology-rich environment to improve success towards course completion. The site of this program will be located in the Avon Local School District. These services will be for the 2020, 2021, the 21-22, and the 22-23 school years. I move to approve the education report in 1 reading.
Second.
Was that in the wrong place?
Oh,
You're right.
We have a third item.
Yeah, well,
Separate.
Our third item,
hold up.
I'm sorry?
That's separate. We'll go ahead and move on. We have a motion and a second on the first 2. It was motioned by Ms. Tamira, seconded by myself. Is there any discussion on the first 2 items? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Chimera,
Yes.
Mr. Vaca,
Yes.
Mrs. Yetsey,
Yes.
Mrs. McCarthy,
Yes.
and Mrs. Saxon.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Tamira, now you can move on to the third item.
Our third item is a resolution to authorize the superintendent to develop and implement a plan of distant learning to enable and require students of the district to access and complete classroom lessons in order to make up hours because of the closing of schools in compliance with the orders of the governor, director of the Ohio Department of Health, the local board of health, and/or an extension of such an order due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I move to approve the resolution regarding distant learning on one reading.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Tamira, second by Ms. Saxon. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Chimera,
Yes.
Mrs. Saxon,
Yes.
Mrs. Yetsey,
Yes.
Mrs. McCarthy,
Yes.
and Mr. Vaca.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, we will move on to the communications report. Ms. Yetsey?
Thank you. We have 7 gifts to North Ridgeville City Schools. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept these generous donations with appreciation. The following amounts were donated to the North Ridgeville Academic Center to be used for students to attend the Washington, D.C. trip. We received $465, which was donated by North Ridgeville Journey of Faith Lutheran Church. $25 was donated by Georgia AWIG, and $50 was donated by North Ridgeville Giant Eagle. In addition, we received 2 half-rack weight benches and weight bars donated by North Ridgeville Football Boosters to the high school for a value of $8,974.04. The North Ridgeville Athletic Boosters donated milk for preseason workouts to the high school for a value of $100.99. A weighted blanket, weighted vest, weighted elephant, 2 sensory balls, and miscellaneous gym equipment was donated by the North Ridgeville Kiwanis Club to the early childhood learning community for an estimated value of $500. Headstrom also donated to the early childhood learning community gym equipment, sensory items that include gym balls, jump ropes, basketballs, baseballs, soccer balls, hula hoops, weighted balls, and therapy cushions for an estimated value of $750. The total donations we've received for the 2019-2020 school year total $52,717.05. We thank our community for their tremendous support of our schools and students. I motion to approve the communications report in one reading.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Yetsey, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm curious as to, we've received quite a few donations for the Washington DC trip. What's going to happen with those donations?
Those donations will be put into that account to be used as a later date. None of them were specified toward a particular student. They're actually just for our use for that trip now and in the future. So we will proceed unless we hear otherwise from those donors.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Yetsey,
Yes.
Mrs. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mrs. Saxon,
Yes.
Mrs. Chimera,
Yes.
and Mr. Vaca.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, we will move on to buildings and operations report. We have 2 Chromebooks to consider for reassignment of equipment that will be used for spare parts, sold, or disposed of. This is the first reading for these items and consideration for your approval. I move to approve the buildings and operations report in one reading.
Second.
Moved by myself, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Vaca,
Yes.
Mrs. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mrs. Yetsey,
Yes.
Mrs. Saxon,
Yes.
Mrs. Chimera,
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, we'll move on to Human Resources Report. Ms. Saxon?
We have a number of items in the Human Resources Report. 1 certified staff appointment, 2 special project stipends, 152 instructional staff 1-year limited contracts, 1 intervention specialist tutor, 5 healthcare associates, 219 levels and step for support staff, 2 certified staff adjustments, 6 certified staff leaves of absence, 1 administrative staff resignation, 9 leave replacement contract non-renewals. I motion to approve the Human Resource Report in 1 reading.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Saxon, second by Ms. Tamira. This evening, we have a resignation here for Julie Gilberti, our intervention specialist. Julie, you are going to be so dearly missed. You have done an amazing job for the school district, an amazing job for the kids with special needs, the sensory rooms, the programs you rolled out. The list goes on and on and on. And as disappointing as it is to accept your resignation, glad to see you're going to still stay local and be able to help North Ridgeville City Schools as well as other districts with your expertise in this area and more importantly, your passion in this area.
Thank you very much. I loved my time in North Ridgeville and I will definitely miss everyone that I've met.
Anybody else? Roll call, please.
These are,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm
Ms.
sorry,
Jessie.
Frank.
Go ahead.
Real quick, these are normal April staff announcements. So this is nothing new, correct? I just wanted people to be aware that this is what we do every April.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mrs. Saxon.
Yes.
Mrs. Chimera.
Yes.
Mrs. Yetsey.
Yes.
Mrs. McCarthy.
Yes.
And Mr. Vaca.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. We'll move on to the Finance Audit Report. Ms. McCarthy?
Yeah, we have 3 items on the Finance Audit Report this evening. The first is our typical financial report and report of interest and investments for March 2020. Our second item is the adoption of the tax rates as presented by the county auditor. Tax rates are effective for collection on January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021. And the third item is the appropriation modification amended certificate. I'm going to move to approve the Finance and Audit Report in 1 reading.
Second?
Moved by Ms. McCarthy, second by Ms. Saxon. Is there any discussion this evening?
Yeah, I would just like our treasurer, Mr. East, to give us just a little bit of background about the amended appropriations.
Thank you, Mrs. McCarthy. The first item, which will go in reverse here, the amended certificate is a document we send to the county auditor certifying that our revenue has increased for fiscal year 2020. We had additional revenue due to the transfer of the funds from the Health Trust Fund and additional revenues received from the federal grants. Several of those monies were issued to us because there were residue from prior years that other districts did not take advantage of. So therefore, we have the additional money from the federal grants. Item number 2 is the appropriation modifications. Fund 024, which is the trust fund for the health care, we have additional expenditures from that, and the board did not appropriate any money from that because we hadn't received the funds from the transfer of the health trust. So we have legal fees and audit fees, and we have to appropriate those funds so that we can expend them. And the other is the expenditure of the federal grants. We need to approve those budgets so that we can also expend that additional money we receive from the federal government through the state. So those are 2 positive items for a school district.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. East.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Roll call, please.
Mrs. McCarthy.
Yes.
Mrs. Saxon.
Yes.
Mrs. Yetsey.
Yes.
Mrs. Chimera.
Yes.
And Mr. Vaca.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, we'll move on to Policy Committee report. Ms. McCarthy? McCarthy, you did such a great job on the last report, I'll let you do this one too.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the first reading of a new and revised set of policies hosted by Neola. The board has reviewed and made edits to those policies in need of an update to reflect the most current laws and/or district practices. The second reading of these policies and consideration for approval will be on our May 5th, 2020 board meeting agenda.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, here's an opportunity for hearing of the public on new items. If there's anybody out there via Zoom that has anything for us, now's your opportunity. Okay. It is recommended that the Board of Education enter into executive session to discuss the employment of public employees.
Moved.
Second?
Moved by Ms. McCarthy, second by Ms. Saxon.
Yes.
Yes? Roll call, please.
Mrs. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mrs. Saxon,
Yes.
Mrs. Yetsey,
Yes.
Mrs. Jamira,
Yes.
and Mr. Vaca.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
I'd like to thank everybody for being in attendance this evening. I know this is different for all of us, and it went surprisingly well. Our first meeting conducted this way. We will continue to conduct our meetings this way moving forward until there's a reason to go back to the more formal setting of all of us in person. So again, thank you. Thank you to the public for participating.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.